There's my buddy.
Hi, Win. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? You're like nonstop.
Yeah, it feels like it. I'm taking a 3-day weekend this weekend though, so I'll get a little chance to unwind.
Good. Is that your fiddle?
Huh? No, I actually had to drop that because my car's just been giving me trouble. So I wasn't going to be able to do a long trip. But I've got a coast weekend with my mama, which is going to be sweet.
Nice. And love the language. That's like foreign to me. Coast weekend. So we're landlocked, you
Yeah,
know?
what do you do? Just go to the mountains?
Go to the mountains.
Sure. Yeah.
Mountains or plains, so lots of choices there, but no coast. Well, we do, I should send you a picture. We do have a beach up about 9,000 feet in the mountains. It's full
Just
of rocks.
It's just like geologically, it's technically a beach.
I guess, or they're trying to get the tourists in. I don't know, but it was fun to stop. And it's like I would not walk barefoot on this beach. So
There's, is there a lake or okay, okay,
yeah, but it's not sand. It's not a
gotcha.
beach.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Well, the Oregon
Yeah,
coast is really pretty and gloomy at this time of year, which is nice.
calming and mellow.
So yeah, well, the water's cold, but it's totally yeah, it's pretty empty. It's not as cold as it is here usually. It's usually about 45, 50, like not bad. I think it's supposed to actually be sunny there, which will be nice.
That's really nice you're doing that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it'll be fun. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
How are you?
So
How's your life?
I should it's one of those days I should write down all the different brain I call them brains, all the different brains that I've done. So I am just jumping from one project to another. So I'm talking about color accessibility, and then I'm talking geeky web stuff, and then I'm like popping over to the airport. And it's fun, but it's one of those days where my head is like, just don't worry about one thing, take it care of. One
Totally.
thing. Yeah.
What is color accessibility? Is that what you said? Color accessibility?
Yeah, it's so somebody who has low vision, they can see contrasting colors and
Okay.
they have to be contrasting enough that they can
Okay.
see. And there's you know, I know this much, so I'm not certified or anything, but you can put in little checkers. So you can put in the two colors and say, what if you do this is foreground and this is background, or this is
Oh yeah.
background and this is foreground? Will it pass? And there's national, I don't know, they might be international standards.
Gotcha.
And
Cool.
yeah, it's cool. It's very cool. And then working with the low vision group, when they do, I don't have enough brain to pull out their vocabulary, but they have some kind of a walkthrough a facility.
Mm.
So we went to the rec center, and some people can see the difference between the carpet that they have to follow and the tile if there's enough contrasting color.
Oh, I see. Wow, yeah.
And so some people can see the
I
contrasting.
wouldn't even think about stuff like that. That's
I mean,
amazing. Yeah,
me neither. I'm loving that I just can tag along and learn. Uh,
totally.
Another guy could see, I think it was green. So his aide wore green so he
Hmm,
could follow his aide.
hmm,
So I'm like, I'm learning.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you and I are doing great emailing. And
Yeah,
it's
it seems to be
just
working well.
when you hit a cycle, send an email. And as I have the quirky things come through, I'll just keep on sending them your way.
Sounds good. Yeah, totally. I'll probably get a chance to start on Terry's list tomorrow. Um,
That's a biggie. He and I
yeah.
have been we tried every month and then every other month, and then we
Oh,
both got insanely busy and
Sure.
neither one of us exchanged. So it's catch up time for both of
Totally.
us. So we'll update, and then once we update, then we'll go query and send him a big update. So we get to share in that joy. So, and then the meetings are working okay for you for taking minutes
Yeah,
between?
totally.
Okay, just checking if we
Right.
need to adjust anything.
No, yeah, it's working great for me. I will be gone next month for the meeting, so I'm gonna have to either record it and do notes once I get back or train someone else to do that. I mean, personally, I'd rather do the notes, I guess, and record it, but because I feel like there's like linguistic things and stuff that from doing this for a couple of years now, I know the acronyms or whatever.
Yes, you do. And it's that trade-off of, is it good to get another person ramped up? Or is it good just to take care of it yourself? And not my
And
decision.
it could
So
be too like that I have someone do it and I'll do a second pass. Just in
yeah,
case like the recording doesn't work too. That's now I'm thinking that. So yeah, that'll be good. I'm gonna go to a forestry camp during that week, which will be a lot of fun.
really?
Yeah, my partner is a botany major, and so they do a lot
Yeah,
of plant stuff. And they're doing this like
really?
week long, like learn how to take care of the woods and do like ecological restoration. I don't know, it just sounds really fun. So
That sounds really nice. It sounds cold for February.
it's gonna be really cold.
Are you in the tents or there cabins?
I'm probably gonna sleep in my car. There are like cabins, but I've been out there before and it's pretty dusty and like close quarters. And I just feel like I'd rather be a little chilly in my car. I don't know. I have camping gear I can bundle up. Like
Very cool.
I'm Oregonian.
Okay, cool. So hold that thought. I'm seeing the clock
Mm.
ticking.
Yeah, I've got
And
Mike Sanders in the waiting room. You want me to?
yeah, and then you and I've done restoration work myself,
Oh
and
yeah.
not a botanist, but we can talk more, but
Oh, that'd
not
be
now.
awesome. Yeah, totally.
Okay. So yes,
Okay.
bring them in. I'm
Yeah, letting
surprised.
him in. Yeah, I just heard Ginevra holler that she's coming in a second. I'm gonna take these off for a second and close my door.
There's my buddy.
Oh, wow.
Oh, and you look at that. Aren't you techie geeky? You put that as your background.
Somebody has too much time on his hands.
It's fun. I did during the peak of COVID, I put in winter equinox picture of the sun the furthest south in Colorado. And since then I haven't done a thing. But this is like current and trendy and fun that you have that there.
Yeah.
Look, Sue, what Mike has behind him for a background.
Hi. Mike Sanders is always trending.
He always
Oh,
says
about
something
that.
interesting, for sure.
Yeah, that's great. And there's Vicky. Vicky and I were my buddy. So Ginevra knows this. So she's an hour and a half south of me. And we were emailing about the airport in Colorado Springs. They have 2 gates, not counter, but gates done and more. They're planning to do the whole, I don't know if it's a concourse. I haven't flown out of there in a while, but we were emailing. So all very cool. So hi, Vicky. I don't know if you have video or voice, but at least hopefully you have captions and I can say, yay, you're here.
So Lynn, can you refresh my memory on how I can get the chat over on the side? It's not, see, showing chat. No, it's not working. I have captions on, but I'd rather see it over in the chat on the side.
So there's Yay, everybody's coming. Glad you're here. So there's, for me, I'm on a PC. So I have a little, it's like I have a pop-out button. It's a little tiny square with an arrow
Oh,
to pop it out, and then
Found
I
it.
can,
found it. Thank you.
it goes back into my explanation of a lot of technology is just finding the right button. So,
true.
That's always a problem, isn't it?
yep. So knowing it exists and then knowing how to do it. And I had one of those, I was working on the website and I spent, I don't know, maybe an hour trying to figure out how to do something. And it turns out that something I thought was just a little like text kind of thing really was a button to turn something on or off. And I clicked it and my problem was taken care of. So it is what it is. So glad everybody's here. It's on with on the top of the hour and hope
Is it
everybody's
already
doing
3 o'clock?
okay.
Oh my gosh, it is.
Yeah,
Okay,
just-
all right. Well, we'll get going here in just a second. It looks like we've got one more. Yes, Heidi came in. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and start, and others will join, I'm sure, as we progress here. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. We always appreciate seeing all of you, and it's especially, I don't know, it's especially inspiring to me that we have coverage across the country like we do. It's very exciting. I just love it. I think it's really going to be good for us in the long run, for sure. So we'd like to know what's happening around the country, and we had a couple of comments suggested before we did the agenda. Robert is not here today, but he did talk a little bit about the DMV in Eugene and indicated that previously they had put in a loop in, but that apparently it's not working. They don't have it set up. And so we need to go out and test that. And that is on my list of things to do, to go out and find out what the real situation is there. Do they actually have a loop? And if they do, why isn't it up and functioning? And why don't they have signs and that sort of thing? So we will address that. And then
So I think, you know, on that point, it seems to me that that's just one of our DMVs around here, and I would love to hear from others around the country. If your DMV, you know, government offices like that, it seems to me are on that fuzzy line between where they should be required to have hearing access. Versus, you know, the courts are clearly in that one camp in the Title II. And it seems to me that government offices like this ought to be in that same camp. Now, that would take probably literally an act of Congress, which probably isn't going to happen in the next near future, but it does seem like we could, everybody needs DMV. And with the states that are putting hearing access on your driver's license, hello, how are you supposed to go ask for that if you can't hear them talk to you? Seems like there might be something that we could do at state levels that would work. Wynn, I'm curious if you know anything about Colorado, Amy.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll jump in a little bit with Colorado and then other people around because I see we have Ohio and Washington. So now Nebraska. So first let me just talk about it's not promoted that much, but there's really two ways for assistive listening. So one is the classic way, and that's what's required anytime there's a PA system. So you have a courtroom, you have some kind of a meeting room, you have a performance, as long as they have, and I'm looking at my techie people, it's not just a microphone, you need the whole audio visual system. So I'll get my language a little bit cleaner. So as long as you have that audio visual system with a microphone, absolutely required. The second one that people, in my opinion, and what I've seen, really don't know about, and they don't leverage it. And that second way is if you need effective communication. And I'm not making up those words, that effective communication comes straight out of the ADA. And that says, anytime I have a problem that we can't hear, we can say, I need accommodations. And there's a whole list of things, for what that accommodation is. And one of those things is putting in an assistive listening system or a portable one. So that's we're covered with any bank, any retail, and back to our question, any DMV. And so they're not required to say every DMV has to have a professionally installed counter hearing loop. But they do absolutely have to provide effective communication. And then with that, there's a little bit, people also don't understand, there's a little bit of back and forth with that second part of the ADA. So you can say, I can't hear. I think you need to have a professional counter loop installed, and they can come back and say, let's pass notes back and forth.
Mhm.
And then you say, that's not effective. Why isn't it effective? So there's this back and forth going. And so if we can cut that off from the beginning and say, this is preferred, this is easy, it gives us, direct communication, blah, 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 it's set. So there's my little tangent before we go, because that's going to be national, how it works no matter in what state. And so in Colorado, there's no DMV that I'm aware of. And I look to you, Vicki. In Colorado Springs, one county has the densest. Let's see if that came through. Yeah, the captions came through. The most number of counter hearing loops in North America. And so they have, I don't know, 20, 25, 30 counter hearing loops, and I don't know that they have it at DMV. So that's my answer. Do you want to add anything, Vicki, for Colorado? Yeah, go ahead, Vicki. Your microphone's muted though. Can't hear you. There we go.
Okay. All right. Yes, this is Vicki here at Colorado Springs, and our entire county, El Paso County Citizen Service Center has counter loops in several departments of the huge county building, and there is at least one, if not two, counter hearing loops in the DMV. Let me clarify, at the stations, when you're called to a station, there'll be a counter hearing loop at one of them that you can go to.
Cool. Thanks very much. Any other states? I'm seeing we have Washington, California, Nebraska, Ohio. Anybody want to, Amy? Sorry, Sue, I'm going to shut up now.
But this is Amy from Ohio. As far as I know, I've never encountered one there. And looking at the website, there's nothing there that talks about anything in regards to hearing access. So I'm going to say that it would be maybe like at the downtown locations versus the suburbs. But not that I'm aware of.
And how about Heidi? Is there anything in Washington that you're aware of?
We have the wonderful designations on the bottom of our driver's license, which is awesome. But I'm not aware of, or nor did I notice when I got my license there 2 years ago, whether or not they had any telecoil signs. I think I would have noticed.
Right, but Wynn, your comment is really, really important actually to remember about how we are entitled to have access to the same hearing that hearing people do everywhere. So that's probably the key message, is that they have to find a way to accommodate us in some way that works for us. So even if they don't have a loop, they have to find a way. Yeah, that's very helpful to remember, and that should be at the top of our minds all the time, of course. Anne, you had a story about the Apple Store that you were going to share.
Oh, right. I recently got a new iPhone, and so I went to the Apple Store to get their initial training on it. And I did read about them having a hearing loop, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's terrific. But I have to say, I don't think I made it clear when I got there. You know, if you go to the Apple Store, they have all kinds of people, and then they say, what are you doing? And so I think, so anyway, I got to my class in plenty of time, and I did ask the teacher about it, and he wasn't very familiar with it. He said, oh yeah, I think we have something you hang around your neck. He didn't say anything about the counter loop. And it didn't occur to me that that's what he had or what they had. So I didn't get it, but I ended up standing next to him so I could hear as clearly as I could. He had a microphone, and I don't know how well that would have worked with the hearing loop anyway, because I would have been like 3 feet from a microphone into a microphone. I don't know. In any case, the other thing that I got from it was I asked him if there was training for people with hearing loss, because I knew they had, you know, new technology. And he said there was, and he said, but you have to set it up yourself. So you call and you set it up. So I'm going to set that up for myself and my co-teacher, and then we hope to have it, if it seems like a good thing, we hope to make it a little field trip for our class, for our upcoming class that starts in February.
That's actually really an impressive opportunity if they really have that available to you. And I mean, I would have loved that when I first got my iPhone, to understand what all the opportunities are, because there are apps and there are built-in functions, and there's no way to know about that unless you know about it.
And it's so difficult to be at the store with all the noise. So I think I'll really kind of press through and be a regular visitor and try to press on them to use the hearing loop and have people see me doing it. Maybe I'll have some people take pictures of me using it.
Yeah, it'd be really great if their employees understood.
Yes.
To Mark too. You can help that as well. That's great. Well, I look forward to hearing back from you on that, Anne, because that will be very good information. That's actually really helpful for our sound advice classes too that we do, for us to be able to explain to people that that opportunity is available, because so many people come to us and they don't understand the interaction between the hearing aids and the iPhones or whatever phone they have, as well as they could. So that would be really helpful. That's great. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything for what's happening around the country that you'd like to share? Dorothy, do you have anything you'd like to share?
No, sorry. Nothing
Okay.
right now. Oops.
That's okay. It's okay. Next time, perhaps.
Maybe.
Heidi, do you have anything from Washington that you'd like to share?
Sure. I think that we have the tiny itsy bittiest start of a movement here. I have been asked to give another 2 presentations in town to people about protecting what you have and the accessories or options for beyond when you've already lost your hearing, what to do next. So that's exciting. And I am doing the research right now. I want to install a teleloop in my home, because I figure if I'm going to be helping other people loop, I need to take them to a place that has a loop. And I'm not quite brave enough to tackle installing the first one at the public library where the director wants one, because I'd rather practice myself first before I try doing it for others. So I am moving forward. I keep talking to people. People keep coming to me being interested. So once I actually have a loop, the PL90's been a godsend, but that's not quite the same as, you know, being able to walk into a room and just hear, as you know. So baby steps.
That's great. That's good news. Very good news. Okay. Anything else from around the country? If not, I'll do a quick debrief on sound advice this past Saturday. Let's see. Bob was there. Alan was there. Peg was there. Who would like to go first to say your impression of it? Bob, how about you?
I'll go. Okay, am I on? Probably not. Am I on? Yeah, okay. Yeah, it was great. And we had a big crowd, and it was very different than in past weeks, in that it was, you know, I wasn't sure how it would go, but I thought it went really well. And everybody got their needs met, and it just always amazes me that there are so many people out there, that new people coming in, and they have so similar needs to the others that have been before them, and how they ended up there, you know, is always a mystery, but it's great.
Great, thank you. Peg, do you want to add anything? Your mic is off. Your mic is off.
No?
There.
Yeah.
Okay. I wish I'd contemplated that before I got here and come up with something brilliant to say. It was
It's okay.
It was a very good one. Your presentation was wonderful. The only thing I noticed is we didn't seem to have enough microphones on my side of the room, so we were passing them back and forth constantly and all, but that was good. That was a sign that everybody had a lot they wanted to say. So
Great.
so
Thank you, Peg. Thank you. Alan, how about you?
You know, it's great that we're seeing so many people, and you know, I wonder how that's happening, word of mouth. But I know that Ginevra's doing a lot more marketing on this. So, boy, it's like the last 3-4 times we've had a full house, and that's exciting.
That's great. Yeah, I think the Shed's marketing of this program is phenomenal. I mean, not just sound advice, but just hearing loops in general. It's pretty incredible. And obviously we would not be where we are without it. I thought it was a good session. As I wrote to the people who were there, I just keep working on the presentation part of it, because it's really easy to overwhelm. And I want to do a presentation that is concise, but complete. It's not too long, so that then people get a chance to talk about their own needs and their own questions about why they come. So I'm working on it. I think there's still a lot of room for improvement. The people were amazing. I mean, we had 13, I think, people besides our group, which is really a lot of people. And there was a big variety of sort of hearing loss situations. We had one person who just got new hearing aids 2 weeks ago and didn't know if she had a telecoil, and it wasn't, if she does have it, it wasn't activated. It didn't show on her phone. We had somebody who's been wearing hearing aids for a while, but lost them and can't find them. We had a few repeat people who just seem to love to come back and feel like they hear something new every time they come. So, boy, I'll tell you, it is inspiring to me, and it's a really good reason for us to just keep doing it. The consistency of doing it once a month at the same time, in the same week, is, I think, very, very helpful. I had a call from Yapoa Terrace, which is a low-income senior housing project in Eugene. And I had a call from their activities director who had been at the shed and saw the come up on the screen about these sound advice sessions. So she called and wanted to know. She thought maybe some of her residents might be interested. And sure enough, 2 of them came on Saturday, which is great. So it's working really well, and I'm super happy with the way that people go away feeling like they got a benefit from it. Anne, did you have a comment to add?
I have a question. And of course, I'm always looking for things to copy if I can gain the resources. But it sounds like, let me see if I've got this right. It sounds like you start off with a presentation that's short, succinct, but big enough to be comprehensive. And then you morph into people's experiences and questions and answers. Is that kind of how it works?
Yes. So what we've done, I'm following Ginevra's model. You know, she pawned this off on me. She used to do it. And somehow suddenly I got roped into it. But I actually like it, which is great. But what we've decided, the formula that seems to work, is that we start out by having everybody introduce themselves and tell what their hearing loss situation is, which is a great story. I mean, this includes all the people who are from our committee who are also there at the session. So we go around and, you know, Bob Nelson tells his hearing loss story, Alan tells his, I tell mine, Peg tells hers, interspersed with all the new people who are there. And what you get from that experience is kind of overwhelmingly inspiring, because you hear all these different experiences that people have, different hearing loss problems they have, and you hear the reasons why they want help and the problems that they're having. You hear a lot in that. We try to keep it fairly brief. You know, I don't want people going on for 15 minutes. We need to have it move along. But once we get through with that, then I do a brief presentation about it. Just hearing loss is complicated. Everybody's is different. It's invisible. We find that people don't learn from their audiologists that assistive listening systems are available and that other tools are available. And so we are here to talk specifically about hearing loops, but we also want to educate them about the other tools that are available. That's basically the presentation. Yeah, Ginevra.
I think, you know, we've honed this literally over the years. And one of the reasons to have Sue do it, there's two. One is she's got more credibility than I do to new people, since I don't have hearing loss the same way. So my story is a little different when I do it that way. But I think we've honed it down to the points about, okay, this sort of sweet and simple, and then we'll get more complicated depending on what people's questions are. And we deliberately and repeat the start of it every single time, which is basically talking about the 4 components of any hearing loop system. And the reason we do it is for the new people, let's see, their first introduction to this whole concept. For the returnees, it's reinforcing the learning. This stuff is complicated, even though it seems sort of simple to our audio geeks. It's not simple for people. There's so much to digest. So they hear it 3 or 4 times and then they might go away, and that's fine. The others that come back, I want them to be able to go do this presentation, at least at the dinner table, to explain it. And we get snippy, downright snippy about, no, you have a telecoil. You don't have a loop, unless you really have a loop, but it's not a telecoil in the room. It's a loop in the room. And we get really picky about that language. And we also insist that everybody in the room uses a telecoil, whether it's in their hearing aid or one of our receiver packs. So that's one of the good reasons to have it at a place that has a looped facility. So on Friday, I'm going to a Rotary and I'm trying to decide, it's in a looped room because Alan looped it. We got it looped. It's one of our board members' Rotaries, but they only have 2 receiver packs and there's 25 people in the room. So I'm tempted to take it and run them through the same top of the order so that everybody has that experience. I think we're at the point, and I think we've done this before, that we could develop this just as a handout curriculum to all of you guys around to say, here's, if you get that opportunity to speak at a Rotary or at a whatever, or to have a sound advice, we'll take this on a road show. When Alan puts in a new loop at any venue, at a church, at a performing arts venue, we offer our services. We don't always get taken up on it, and when we do, they don't always show up. But it's there as a resource to teach people about this.
Great. And the idea of repeating it is interesting because one might think that people who come back 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times, I mean, David Kolb has come probably 10 times. You might think they'd get bored, but we do keep that presentation brief. And last week, a gentleman came who's been there before, and he said, I was here before, but I forgot everything that I heard. And so he came back again. So it is the kind of thing that people do need to hear repeatedly in order to really grasp. And I think about how much I have learned in the 7 or 8 years we've been doing this about how to say it and how to talk about hearing loss and hearing loops. And I know that it has taken me a long time to get clear about that so I can understand that new people would feel the same way. So anyway, it's wonderful. When Ginevra first proposed that we would do this every month, I thought, oh my God, every month? And now I realize that every month is really effective.
And special, yeah.
Okay.
Is my mic working? No, it's not. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is my mic working?
Yeah.
Harry, did you have your hand
Well,
up? I'm
sometimes
sorry,
it
I missed
doesn't.
you.
That's all right. Half the time my mic doesn't work and I got to shut down anyway. But so a couple of questions, I guess, on the marketing. What you've been doing? I didn't realize you've been doing it so long, and I'm sure those early years were like 2 people show up and you think, is this worth it? Maybe not. No. Okay, that's fantastic. But it's great to keep that energy going still after all this amount of time, and you know, obviously you've got a great base that you've built on, which, you know, Lincoln has squat when it comes to that, unfortunately. But so I guess, how, you know, what is your marketing? Your newsletter, or you get a little blurb in whatever local paper you got every week or month, the week before? Or
It's multi-pronged, and that's been one of the benefits of being affiliated with a performing arts center. So when there was a time, I don't know, a year or 2 ago, and I guess it wasn't Ann Garrity, it was a different Ann from California, where we said, how do we replicate this? And affiliating with a looped venue, be it a house of worship or a church, I mean, a performing arts center, has advantages for exactly what you're pointing at. It's like, how do we reach people, and how do you do this in a looped space? In terms of our marketing, we just blanket Eugene about this. I mean, you'd be pretty hard pressed at this point, I think, if you weren't living under a rock, to not know that we're doing something about hearing here. But what's changed is that we decided to violate our own principles and go ahead and just put everybody whose emails that we have on, you know, it's not MailChimp, but, you know, one of those email things, as opposed to my private email list, which was 1,000 that I would send regular updates to. So now this alert for 2 or 3 months now has been going out to over 12,000 people on that email chain. Plus, we talk about it all the time on the radio. It's on our PowerPoint. It's in our program books. It's in our ticket brochure. It's on the website. So there's a lot. There's flyers that we've put out. I mean, we can give copies of all of that. But what is interesting is going back and looking at those first years of this whole loop exploration thing. I mean, we actually had pretty big meetings right at the very beginning, if you remember, way back. And some of those people I think about, I think we probably killed them with the information because we were really struggling to understand this. And Sanders was there and Bob Nelson was there and Alan was there, thank God. And we stuck with it. And that's where the blue mist images came from. It's like, wait a minute, we're teachers. Let's go back to the drawing board and get rid of all this British English that's confusing things and all the tech stuff and make it simple, stupid. So that's part of what, where we hung with it. What I would say, Harry, is that each session, even without this more email blast, we probably had 2 to 5 new people each time out of maybe 8 to 10 or 12. We had 19 people in the room the other day. That starts to be a pretty big class. And it always runs an hour and a half. We don't want to, we try not to let people know we're thinking that long, but people don't want to leave. But I think if you say it's going to be an hour and a half, people won't come. So we try to kind of hide that. And obviously it's not compulsory. You can leave whenever you want, but we give them tea.
Yeah. Also, I just want to say that one person actually felt so moved by the opportunity that he wanted to make a donation, which is very touching, actually. Alan, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to expand a little bit on our format and, where we start off talking about the basics of hearing aids, telecoils, loops, what are they, blah, 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 to give them the overview and talk about all the other systems. But then it sort of evolves into individuals struggle with their technology because every person in the room, they might have one person has an iPhone, another person has an Android. What options there are, in terms of accessories to help us, and those all take time because there's so many choices. The good news, there's a lot of choices. The bad news, there's a lot of choices. So it's just there's a lot to go through, and I think we help people getting beyond just the basics of loops and assistive listening. It's like, what the hell do I do with this thing? So that's it's rewarding.
Dorothy?
Yes, I have a question. Forgive me. I probably should know this, but what's a receiver pack? Geneva mentioned that they had receiver packs, and I don't know what one is.
Okay, let me see if I've got one sitting here.
Great question.
Great question.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, Dorothy. Ginevra's going to grab one.
Start explaining it and I'll see if I can find one.
Okay, so there is a little
I've got one handy.
Remember what iPods used to look like? It's just a little black electronic device. It has a cord attached to it. And at the end of that cord is a little gizmo that hangs over your ear. And it has a telecoil in it. So if you don't have telecoils in your hearing aids, you can use a receiver pack and put it on your ear and you will get the same benefit. If you don't have hearing aids, you can use a hearing pack, a telecoil pack, to get the effect of what listening through a loop is.
Oh.
Never, can you hold that up again?
Yeah, and I feel like an airline stewardess. What's important about what's so critical about this, Dorothy, is when you hear okay, and Alan's got a different version. This one's made by Williams. His is Contacta. But the point is, when we do this curriculum, we talk about what any hearing loop consists of. And the 3 parts are at the venue: the wire, the power source, and a microphone. And you are responsible for bringing a telecoil. Now, if you don't have a telecoil, I give you one. That's what's in this little pack. And I give you headphones or an earpiece to listen to it. If you are in an FM system or an infrared system, your telecoil works with the neck loop that you plug into this thing instead of the headphones. So when you hear Win and us talk a whole lot about ADA access hearing aids, that means they have to have a telecoil. Otherwise, in my opinion, your hearing aid provider is preventing you from having your ADA rights. It's like giving you a wheelchair without the front wheels. Because
Yeah,
that's how
and-
you get it.
In Cleveland, this is very helpful. In Cleveland, I go to a concurring lecture done by riders, and they have an FM, and I use a neck loop, and that connects with my hearing aids, and
Right,
it works.
right.
It works well usually.
So is it true that the packs, just the telecoil packs, those are universal regardless of brand? And the only time brand matters is if you're picking up an FM or infrared system that you're then trying to loop to your telecoil in your hearing device. Is that true?
Well, it's a good question, and Win has got some information that Win and Harry have been working on. You want to jump to that with the...
Yeah, so I also saw Mike's. I'll start, and then Mike and Alan, if you want to jump in anymore. So yes, that's the beauty of a telecoil. They're universal. So you can pass out receivers, any brand, with the headset or headphones, and again, any kind of a headphone, and it works. But the FM and the infrared, that changes a little bit. So with the receiver for the FM or the infrared, you can plug in just about any kind of a headphone, but those neck loops you need to match them. So if you put a Williams on a Listen, they're going to be incompatible because of the socket and the jack. They have to match, and I'll stop at that. We're techie, maybe we can go offline, is it TRS kind of a connection, or, and I have that all written up, and I won't, that's another 5-10 minutes to talk there. So, Mike, Alan, you want to jump in anymore?
Yeah, I think just a little bit of further clarification. So basically, there's 3 different versions of these receiver packs. This one has a telecoil only, and it's made to work. This particular one is made to work with a headset, period. Now, they also make these identical things, but the guts are different. An FM system has a radio receiver, and there it receives the FM radio broadcast, and then that unit has the connections for a neck loop, because the receiver pack then takes that radio signal, converts it to a loop signal. The neck loop goes around your neck, and then your telecoils receive it. So, I'm just checking to see if anybody's drooling yet. It's like, oh my God, this guy's going to tech. And then the other version is infrared, exact same box, but the guts inside are made to receive an infrared signal, which is an invisible light. And then once again, neck loop around your neck. So it converts it to a magnetic loop field for the telecoil in your hearing aids to receive. But no matter what, like Ginevra was saying, if you don't have a telecoil, that's when you need to have headphones. And good luck putting headphones over hearing aids. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
So I see Anne has a question, and then I want to add a little bit more. You're on mute.
I have a thought, because Sue, you have done this, well, you both have done this for so many years. Maybe it might be good to do it for us, and then we'll see you in action. Just a
So
thought.
you're
Not for
saying,
today, another day.
We could do that.
Good.
We can definitely do that. Was
So,
Mike,
yeah.
did I see Mike's hand up or not? Mike, was your hand up?
Yeah, Alan's right. Those 3 packs might look the same, but the point is that a telecoil is a telecoil and magnetic field's a magnetic field. They are not manufacturer specific. The rest of it is all up for grabs. It could be the frequency of the infrared. It could be the size of the connector. It could be the current drive of the neck loop. It could be anything, but a telecoil is a telecoil. So if you walk into a loop environment and you have a telecoil receiver of any kind, it'll pick up that signal. That's the important point. That's the universality. Whether it's a taxi cab, a theater, restaurant, you know, anything, the technology doesn't change.
Okay, Win, you're on.
Okay, I see, Harry, I see your hand going up, and it doesn't matter if you start it or if I do, so go ahead. But you're on mute. There you oh.
Can't hear you, Harry.
He says his microphone is not working. Go ahead with what
Okay.
you were gonna say.
Okay, as we all
You know
use our
sign language?
lip reading skills. So I'll jump in and then start talking, and then when you have a microphone, Harry, jump in, or if you need to reboot, you know, whatever, we'll be here. So this is just, I just love this group. We just think alike, we share, we learn, and then we have spontaneity things. So one of the things when I was working with the low vision group, they were having, so remember, low vision, you know, we have close to some kind of pretty good eyes. We can look at these boxes and figure out where the knobs and the dials and whatever is. These low vision people don't know, and they're doing it by touch. And so one of the comments that really struck home with me of, I didn't know how to adjust the volume because this gadget, this receiver was not like my last receiver at a different venue. And that has cascaded in my work. And so I think a lot of people, whether you have good vision or whether you have low vision, don't know what to expect because every manufacturer does something different. And so Harry and I are on a roll, and I sent him an email and I said, so how's your time? You have time to look at this? And he said, sure. So he has spent painstaking hours, and we now have a chart of all of the FM receivers and all of the technology comparisons. He did a chart of all of the infrared receivers and all the comparison, and it's exactly as Mike is saying of anything goes with what is coming out of them and how they're working. I mean, it's just, the spontaneity is just amazing. So I am finalizing those sheets, and then I'm sending them to the manufacturer to say, we did the best we could, what do you think? And they correct it. They're going to send it back to me, and I'm going to put it up on the website. And then anybody can see this, anybody can learn, the venues can compare when they're buying it. And hopefully someday somebody that has a lot of audio wizardry can compare and say, the manufacturer claims this, but this is what we read. And this is what we experience with it, because I suspect some of them don't perform as well as what they claim. And I'd love to figure, because we know we go places and sometimes they're too soft, or sometimes they're not coming in clear. So is it the neck loop? Is it the receiver? Is it the audio out from the AV system? Is it the hearing aids aren't connecting right? There's a lot of variables. So we're trying to do slash one monster at a time. So Harry, do you have, nope, just lips. Okay. So yeah, Alan, go ahead.
Regarding facilities and receiver packs, and I think training is key. I just finished a couple months ago putting in 15 counter loops in the HALT Center here in Eugene, which is a huge 2,500 seat auditorium, and the second room is 500 seats. But all the counters, every single one-to-one contact point is there's 15 counter loops, and what I'm going to be doing is scheduling a training session with all department heads, all managers, staff, and stick headphones with the receiver pack on them so they understand what the experience is like. Now, what's going to be very, very interesting, this is a great opportunity because the two theaters at the HALT have infrared systems. And so this is going to be an opportunity, I think, to really talk about having their staff members understand these units, because I know that Mike McCabe has gone to the HALT and he used their receiver pack with a neck loop, and it wasn't a good experience. And I think that's happened to a couple other people. And, it all comes down to staff. When the staff gives you the receiver pack neck loop, they need to know what they're talking about. So when they hand it to them, here's the volume, here's this, here's that. So people aren't sitting there in a dark theater like, what the hell's going on?
So I'd like to jump in. So just a little clarification. So receiver pack is kind of one of our slang terms. It's very user friendly. If you're saying, people can identify with pack, that makes sense to people. But technically, it's just a receiver. And so that's, what's there. Everything is just receiver. There we go. Yep. And then the second thing that I learned fairly recently, and it made total sense, when you're with a hearing loop, that receiver has to be upright. So if somebody borrows that receiver and they lay it down on the table in front of them, that telecoil is oriented differently, and they're not going to get as good a sound as if it's upright. And the newer ones, Contacta did a good job on their newer ones because they put it right on the label and they say, keep it upright.
Well, that's true with your head. I always love Juliet Sturkin's story of people in church that go down to pray and they lose the pastors. There is a verticality to your telecoil.
Yep. Okay, anything more on receivers? You can expect that's going to go up on the web. 3-ish
Is my mic
weeks.
working? Oh,
Yes.
it's working again. I don't know. I push a bunch of buttons, it comes back. I don't know. Time for a new laptop. Honey? Oh. The research I did on those receiver packs or the receivers, I like what Alan explained, because that's a piece I think we could add. I put it in the chat directly to you, Win, but I think what Alan explained, how they don't all work together or work with each other. One maybe doesn't use a headphone or doesn't use a neck loop, but somehow we might need to figure out a way to include that information. I don't know. And you were talking, Win, about, I'm not a techie person, but I did a little bit when I did the research on the portable hearing loops and did write up my experiences of the 3 that I was able to actually physically test, and my own impressions. And I think they all exaggerate on how far the reach is of the signal. Every single one wouldn't reach past 3 feet for me. It was more in the, 2.5 foot range, it seemed like, from my experience. But that those personal comments I agreed were not really what should probably be on the CHA website at this point in time. Maybe at some point there'd be a way to have a link, a separate link to personal experiences or something. I don't know. But anyway, I appreciate the opportunity. I've done that. I still have, what do I have left? When? The loops left on that?
Yep, the
I
loops.
think, or infrared, maybe infrared, I think, I can't remember. Anyway,
No, infrared's done. FM's
FM,
done.
okay,
The loops.
yeah.
Okay, Sue, anything else in that section?
I don't think so. I think we've covered it.
Okay. So moving on to 4, and I look to Ginevra. This is something that Ginevra asked that we just continue. It's about sharing. So it's about performing arts and sharing with your experiences. You want to add, Ginevra? Anything
Well,
with
just
that?
the reason I'm keeping it on there is that I want to keep our sensitivity high as we develop the survey for arts venues. But the more shared stories I can gather ahead of time helps us get really smart about what you all are experiencing when you know, if we say you're supposed to be able to go get one of these receivers with a neck loop and you go to a place and you can't get it, what does that mean? So that's why I want to know, I want to learn quality, I want to learn experiences, I want to know what's happening front of house. How did you find out about it on the website? It's a way of doing in real time advocacy. Just not that I want you to go out and go to a performing arts venue, but if you happen to have gone to anything over Christmas, how was your experience?
And I wonder if, like, I agree, I think hearing loops should be the primary focus, but we had a conference in October that I shared earlier that a month or 3 weeks before the conference, I said, hey guys, what do you have for assisted listening, which is, by the way, required by ADA? And they went out and bought a cheap FM system with an earbud, an hearing loop thingy, earbuds, and they did have a neck loop, but that didn't work well with the system they bought because it was a Williams neck loop and some other cheap system for FM. But it got something, but it seemed like it might be, I don't know, have an asterisk that we could say they don't have a hearing loop, but they do have this assisted listening system, because our overall goal is to get places with assisted listening systems, right? I mean, ideally hearing loops, but I don't know, just something, just thought I'd throw it out if it's something to think about, but.
Yeah, I mean, what's happening is that we are finding places that are literally out of compliance, even though they get federal funding or pass-through grants. So we need to find out who's out of compliance and how do we encourage them to get a hearing loop in there, and especially before all the noise of Oracast coming down the pike, so that they don't get confused or saying we'll wait 2 years. They're out of compliance, which means we need to file a complaint.
Which I have yet to hear back from Pennsylvania, so.
Yep. So to answer your question, Harry, yes, our whole focus is assistive listening and specifically focused on the ones that meet the ADA. So very little, so the exception is of like audio over Wi-Fi. Those generally don't meet the ADA, so there's very little information about that on the website. And it's all about helping people to have access to sound and good sound, and then the resources to give feedback or file that formal complaint. That's what CHA's all about. And we prefer hearing loops for all the reason we keep talking about.
Yeah.
So anybody performing arts stories? Not hearing that. I shared mine that I went, so it was it's Once Upon a Mattress, and I went just to go with the low vision people, and I just thought, well, that would be just kind of fun. And it was really good. So I had a fun time. I picked up 2 receivers, and then I just changed the neck loops, going back and forth between them. and there was a problem with the audio description, and then wrote Mike and Alan, and also another techie, and he was saying there was some problems with the automatic gain. So I just continue to learn, continue to reach out, and to talk to people. So moving on, got to get my glasses on. Number 5. So to hear better, I'm going to just share one of the things that I came across was that the Cultural Access Center, they're doing something different that I had not seen anywhere in the country. And that is, they're saying it's really important to have accessible events, but if you're going to a different location, they may or may not have what's needed. And so they're having, like a library, a checkout of equipment. And I just wanted to share that with you, that that's a really cool idea. And in the same breath, some things should be at any venue anyway. You shouldn't have to, bring your own FM system. So I put that link in there if you want to check. Anybody else want to bring other things they've thought of or needs that they've seen? Okay, I see Heidi, and then we'll do Amy.
I was so impressed with my local library director while we're still looking at maybe getting a whole big room done. I took my PL90 and I said, well, this is commercially available and it would be something that you could have at the check-in, check-out desk. And he says, well, maybe we can get a couple of them because this library actually has a lending library of things. And so he was thinking that he could put the PL90 in the lending library so people can check it out, take it home and play with it. It hadn't occurred to me that that was even something that libraries did. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's a really cool thing to do for people.
Heidi, if you do that, make sure you recommend the kit. I'll send you the specs on the mic that we, maybe I already did, on the mic that we've sussed out. You can put any mic with it, but the one that round one that we do is inexpensive, and we've sort of tested the quality of the sound. It's a really good average mic, but it needs both, I think, to be a good lending library item. And the other thing that you might suggest to them is to use the instructions that we've created, because I don't think out of the box it makes any sense. You gotta put labels on the back of that thing. I've talked to Williams about trying to get labels on it, but it's out of England. It's not even a Williams product. They're just sort of a pass through.
Right. Yes, please, if you would send me those instructions. I thought they were exceptionally good. And I have a labelizer and I can label the back of it. But the microphone part, send me what you know about that too. Thank you.
I will.
Well, okay, Amy.
You brought up a point saying that you shouldn't have to bring your own. If you were to bring your own FM receiver, you would have to know the channel then that they're on, and they don't necessarily advertise that, I'm assuming, or even know it themselves. And is it hard to find, like, switching through channels if you had to do that? I have no idea.
You'd eventually come across it. It's like tuning a radio, from what I was reading on the FM receivers, that you would eventually find it potentially. But some receivers are also 28 channels or maybe more. But the person checking them out at our lead center, they don't know squat about them, and the sound person might. If our sound person sits right in the back, as soon as you walk into the upper level, I have managed to talk to him one time, but yeah.
Thanks.
You probably should be able to, some have a clicky dial and others are just a rotating, like a radio receiver might, you just push, you roll through the number. And I don't know, it depends on the receiver too. If you're going to see any numbers, some might not even have numbers on them. I'm not sure.
Wow.
Thanks, Harry.
Okay, and then moving on into just a few little comments about national is just we have a great team, we have great discussions, and appreciate the volunteer work that many people have done. And so I listed that in the agenda of, it's about what time you have. You know, not everybody has the right time in the right place in the right project, and it's just a matter of finding a match. And appreciate everybody's work, because collectively it's really, really helping some of the work that we're able to do with CHA with that. So you can see that there. And even so, in addition, so what Ginevra was saying about, you know, what's happening with performing arts, it's like the stories and the needs and raising them up is exceptional. So let me tell you the latest story of Anne sent that note for an update about the Apple Store. So that went into the agenda. It went into, I pulled out the picture from Vicky about the Apple Store so everybody can see what they have. And then that spurred me to say, I've been meaning to contact Apple. Now's a good time to do it while it's on my radar. So I sent Apple Accessibility an email, and I said, we don't have any of your hearing loops on our list. Can I get a list of 272 stores?
Oh.
And they emailed me back this morning, and they said that they had referred my hearing loop requests on to the appropriate team. So, and that took them 2 days. So sometimes this, you know, it's questions, it's sharing, and then it helps us to get things at a different level. So just keep all those things going with that. Let's see here. The really exciting news is this morning, with fear and trembling, I pushed the button and we now have a new website. And so that's up and working, and got it checked and got it double checked. And I need to add a forward to the old website to point to the new one. And I'm not about to do that when I have people hitting the website around the world during working hours. So tonight, when things settle down, I'm going to make that switch. But just very, very exciting to work with Ginevra and Jim and to get a well-branded name, because to Harry's question, we're not just hearing loops, and that really stops people. So to have Center for Hearing Access with the new domain will really help with that. And
I gotta
then,
change my business cards now. I gotta put the new web address on there.
yeah, well, there's no hurry. It'll still work.
Yeah.
Just when you rinse and repeat, it'll be there.
Congratulations.
Yeah, what's the question, Anne?
Oh, just congratulations.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, it's that teamwork of getting some things going and getting some help in some different ways. Okay, and then, so any questions or any needs I have, I don't want to share. I mean, my list is never ending. I'm in the assembly line, and I do the most that I can in a day and turn them over to the next day. And I have several pots on the stove cooking, but that's kind of highlights. So, Bob.
I just wanted to share, I shared this with some other people, but over the weekend, I Googled Phonak about a hearing aid that I gotten an ad for it. And all of a sudden, all these things from CHA were coming up, as well as Sue's little blog from, you know, with Google now, I think it's probably generated by artificial intelligence, but they have these little questions and it says, do I need a hearing loop? Or do I need a hearing, a T-coil? Do I need a T-coil? And I said, well, I want to know the answer to that. And I pushed that. And then here's this very familiar piece I know I've read before somehow. And so I enlarged it, and there was Sue's. She has a little blog on her audiologist newsletter, or she did. This was from March of 2024, and it was her answer to that. And so I was just very impressed by that. That's the first time that's happened to me where your stuff has been the initial answer to my question. And it wasn't initial, of course I went to Phonak and I was asking, does this has a telecoil? This, is this newest, greatest piece of technology they have? And so I was, but didn't say anything about T-coil. So I figured it did not. So that's what I was looking for the answer to. And I got the answer that no, it does not have a T-coil, but it did answer, AI answered that you could use this and this, and this other model they have. If you want a T-coil, you can use this older technology. I think it's probably what it is. But anyway, I was just really, I think you're really making an impact, and that's really good. I'm really great.
I did there was a Facebook ad for over-the-counter, I forget the name of them, Noobs or some different name. And so I looked up their main email and emailed the contact on there, and I got a response the next day. My question was, do they have Bluetooth to work with your phone? And I didn't even bother asking about telecoil, and of course they came back, no, they don't. And she was, I think if I recall, she was pretty forthright in saying they were meant for low to moderate hearing loss. But yeah, they were like, and they were what, $100? Wasn't that what they were, Win? So it's like, oh yeah, I'm sure they're going to work really well for somebody that needs hearing aids, but yeah.
Yeah. So thank you both for sharing, and Bob, that warms my heart. That's the whole intent of just pushing the information out. So we share, we learn, and pushing it out, and the web is the best way of doing it. So with that transition, our next sharing is about counter hearing loops. Counter hearing loops have really been on my mind in a lot of ways. Knowing the differences between them, and I didn't even know that Univox had one. And so that was kind of fun to work with that. Harry did a wonderful chart that's out to the manufacturers. It's due on the 20th, and then I'll upload it to the web. So you've seen a little sneak preview that there's 4 of them to choose from. And then with that, people interchange and say, well, a portable, that can go like at an airport. And the problem with that is that's a permanent counter. You need a permanent hearing loop that's professionally installed, so it's angled in the right way, the microphone is in the right way, it has enough strength for the area. And then, so people don't really notice the difference. And so that link, if you want to learn more, there's a little bit of a write-up with that. And then the other side is those portables are really powerful, that you can take that on the fly to a meeting room, checked out as you're talking, Heidi, can be brought into a meeting is really good. And so I was emailing Mike and Alan to say, well, how would you classify the different types of counter hearing loops? And so that's what got into on the other pages of after the agenda, is those differences, as well as I put in, I think one of you pulled apart that front, because your photograph came from that. And it's just kind of fun to, see, well, how those things work. So this is just, I wanted to introduce and to say they're not interchangeable. We need to be really clear about how can we give people the best access to sound, about getting the right hearing loop for the right situation. And then turn it over. Mike and Alan, do you want to add some comments? And then after that, some more questions about what has this spurred your conversation going. So take it away, one of you. I don't know. Either one.
Let's see. I think it would be best to talking about counter loops, because there's three different types of aerials for a counter loop. There's the what they call above the counter, where it's the aerial and the sign are all one piece. And I lean towards those because it kills two birds with one stone. It's like the sign and the loop. You stand in front of the sign, you're in the loop. So that's the above the counter. And then there's the under the counter, where there's just no place to put an aerial, and that's a wire with many turns of wire to create a significant loop field, but that requires getting under the counter and attaching it at the appropriate height and all that stuff. So, but then you need a sign. So in other words, you got to figure out where, get a sign and where to put it. And I always tell clients, just have the customer stand in front of the sign. That makes it simple. It's like, as opposed to, over here, over there, or whatever. And then the third type of aerial for a counter loop is a window mount, where it's three separate pieces, very thin pieces. The first is the sign that has the ear and the T on it. Then the loop wire, which is flat, gets stuck to the back of it. And then they give you a solid piece to cover that, so staff doesn't have to look at all this wire thing, and it also protects it. The beauty of that is when there's no counter at all, and there's no place to put an above the counter aerial or an under the counter aerial, a window mount is a great option when you've got an area where there's glass. And then lastly, and this isn't a loop, this is a speech transfer system, which is something where you're using a microphone for the staff, a microphone for the customer, and there's a speaker on each side. And that's where they need audio support. And you can also add a loop onto that as well. The person who does not have hearing loss with devices, they're able to hear through glass, where it's like, let's say it's a courthouse. So that's where these two speakers, two microphones come in handy. And then you stick a window mount loop aerial on the glass. So for us folks who have hearing loss and it's a noisy environment, we can just switch into T-coil and get the benefit there.
Cool. So thanks, Alan, for that overview. I see Vicky has a question, and then Mike will see, if you want to add some comments. So go ahead, Vicky. Mike is off. Okay.
I wanted to mention on the permanently installed counter loops, every place that has installed them are using these, maybe 4-inch microphones on the desk, which I don't think, there are the tall ones, and I think you had one, maybe 12 inches tall. You had one when you were displaying some counter hearing loops. And if any of you were involved in recommending these permanent counter loops, if you might mention, apparently people don't know that that you can get the taller ones, which people do not have to lean down to talk into, which they often feel like they have to do. But I've also found that those short ones are really not picking up the speaker's voice well enough. So I just think the tall ones are better. However, some feedback I got when I mentioned that was, well, we don't want to take up much space. Well, it's vertical space, it's a pencil thin. So I don't understand their reasoning behind that. It's not like it's sticking out anywhere. And then when I think you mentioned the ones that stick right onto what may be a computer or something that's right there, like at mouth level. So I just wanted to offer that for a suggestion or something to think about if you're involved with talking about someplace getting a counter loop and what kind of mic they might want to consider.
Vicky, let me respond to that. I've been using one of these little 4-inch microphones with good success. Part of it, the microphone, it's a directional microphone and it's a noise canceling microphone. I permanently attach it to the counter within about 2 feet of the person who's speaking, and that works pretty well. But if it's a high noise environment, there's also microphones that are about the size of a June bug that, you know, if there's you know, if there's desktop real estate is slim. You know, each situation is unique. I installed 23 systems out at the airport here in Eugene, and I put gooseneck mics like that. Well, after about a year, half of them were broken by staff, just because the desktop real estate is limited. It's a high intensity, fast moving environment. So lesson learned for me. A lot of places that's not an appropriate thing, but the 4-inch microphone that I'm using from Contacta, that's been working quite well in many environments. The person never has to lean into it. They just, I put it about 2 feet away from the person, aimed at them, and I've had good success.
Thanks, Alan, for mentioning, you know, another perspective. What I've run into, and this is not about the height of the microphones, but counter staff or people at their desk seem to push the microphones, you know, in back of their computer or move it away from where they're speaking. And sometimes I wonder, well, how do we get people to understand that you cannot be at the other end of the counter and expect your voice to be picked up in a microphone that's at the other end? So that's probably still an education about using the equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. And because I've been installing so many counter loops, what I'm doing is I train every single staff person where I install it. And what I do is I stick, and they're typically almost always people without hearing loss, so I stick a loop listener on them, put them out in front, and then I'm the staff member speaking into the mic, and they go, oh, I see. And then I have them what I call the counter loop cha-cha, moving back and forth away from the aerial, you know, so in other words, once they're 5 feet away, oh, I don't hear it. As conversely is when they get on top of it, it's like, oh my God, it's so loud. So they understand, so they can help direct the people better. And then lastly, I always permanently attach a microphone and said, don't move this. It's there for a reason.
Thank you, Alan.
Can I add, Vicky, to that? One of the things that we do, especially what Alan has gone and done, is watch behavior. And for instance, at the grocery store, we thought that microphone should be in place A, that's where the grocery clerk would be talking for the most part. Turns out it was 90 degrees off. So it got replaced to where they are most of the time speaking. We did put on Velcro a little tiny mic at the top of computer screen so that our ticket staff is looking at your eye, making eye contact with you, and your voice is going right through it. Oh shoot, there was something else you were saying. Oh, something brilliant I had to say to that. Oh well.
So while it's coming to, I'll jump in the chat. I put a link to some of Alan's pictures of installs of how he's made the microphone not move. And so that it's at the right angle once it's figured out with that. So I see.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. This microphones are one of the pieces of equipment that we talk about in sound advice that the hearing world in particular, but I think also folks with hearing aids, we do not understand what a microphone does. And we don't understand the difference between a microphone and a PA system. And we don't know how to use microphones. And you'll go to a conference and you'll tell the guy, you got to use the microphone. And he says, I have a big voice. Can everybody hear me? Well, of course not. So then they begrudgingly pick up the microphone and then within 30 seconds or less, it's down at their belly button, and all you can do is
Yeah.
hear their stomach growling because they, you know, or you talk with it over this way or just too far away. So I think there's a whole lot that we have to be a little bit patient, but it's another advocacy thing where anytime you can't hear somebody using a microphone, you got to say, please use it like an ice cream cone.
Love the ice cream. So I have Mike, I promise,
Mike.
next, and then we'll get to Harry.
Well, just a couple of things here. First of all, a 4-inch microphone doesn't tell us anything. It's like saying, I have a car. Okay, there are plenty to choose from. They all perform differently. So picking the right 4-inch microphone is a big deal. Also, and just to state the obvious, there's as many ways to use a microphone as there is to comment on a social media post. They're all over the planet, and there's no way that you're going to go in once and fix this. It's got to be constant, and it's got to be people on top that care about keeping it constant, and it's going to be a constant problem. You get one new person in there and your whole system is going to fall apart if you don't get to them. So it's hard, really hard.
Good. So thanks. And long-term goal is to, I've started, but to write a little bit more about microphone etiquette, different types, you know, not turning people into know-it-all geeks, but at least to be aware and at least to give permission to say, not working, try again.
But one other thing, Win, is that people with hearing aids have to understand about the microphones in their hearing aids. That's one thing that we've found people really don't realize. And you know, you've got a hearing aid like Alan's that's got 5 different microphones in it. So again, what does a microphone do? And so when we say that a hearing loop or a loop system or a assistive listening system wasn't working, you have to troubleshoot each of those components and see, was the mic turned on? Was somebody using the mic?
I think a do and don't list of for microphones should be created. Simple bullet points.
Good point.
Good. So on the website, I borrowed State of Washington. There's Like the Mic, they have a little cutesy little video, which is a start, but it's not a grab it really quickly, a couple points about using microphones. So you can put that on the someday. It'll be a really good tool to do. So Harry.
As an aside, we're constantly telling people at our church, and of course they've heard it from us telling other people, hold the microphone in front of your mouth, and like it drifts down to their chest, or they just don't hold it close enough. But I was going to ask Alan though, with the various counter loops that you described, power, are they all similar in strength? How easy it is, do you, especially if it's the under the counter one, I mean, adjusting the volume sounds like it might be more difficult or is it kind of a set volume? And then what about the mat? What do they call that you stand on? I've seen that in articles too.
Counter loops, the 3 different aerials, they're all going to give you the appropriate amount of signal strength, and part of that equation is proper placement of the aerial. One of the good things about a under the counter aerial is the width of the loop field is a little bit wider because the wire is physically a little bit longer. Because the under the counter loop, usually we try to do this L type arrangement. In other words, so the signal is going, out and up. This is more the out, and then this is the up. And but the strength is always, that's part of the installation, ensuring the strength is always consistent, but that's really governed by heights. The counter loops I'm installing, we don't even have a volume control on it. It's preset. It has a AGC circuit, automatic gain control, which raises the volume when someone's soft smoking and keeps it within bounds when somebody's got a loud voice.
Question, Alan, isn't the volume that you receive dependent on the program of your hearing aids or your cochlear implant that the audiologist programmed?
Hang on one second here. I'm sorry, if you could just repeat that question, Heidi. I had some noise here and my room mics are too hot on my hearing aids.
No problem. Isn't it true that the volume that the person using the hearing loop receives is controlled by the programming of the telecoil circuit program in their hearing aid or cochlear implant?
Yeah, and the audiologist will set that based on your hearing loss. That being said, there's so many variables where you are in relation to the loop, the energy of the person's voice speaking. That's where it comes in really handy to have your app. So right now, my wife was just printing and the printer's 6 feet away from my head. And I'm going, oh my God, it's too loud. Turn down my hearing aid mics. So you can do the same thing with the telecoil too. That's the beauty of being able to control your hearing aids with an app.
So,
and I can control the volume on my loops. I can also control the volume as well as how much is loop and how much is mixed with room noise, room sound. So
yeah.
Okay, I see Sue's hand went up and Mike, and then I'll have a comment too, and then we'll wrap it up. So Sue?
I wanted to go back to Heidi's question there, because it still is important that when the loop is installed, that the volume going out is an appropriate volume so that everybody has an opportunity to pick it up. I mean, yes, you can adjust it personally for your hearing aids, but the Delta Loop standards require that the loop volume coming out of the loop is at a certain standard.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. So
take a deep breath first, because this one, the answer to that is yes. If you put a set signal into the driver, you should get a certain signal out. But that is one piece of the equation, because as soon as Alan leaves, the amount of signal going into the driver depends on the guy who's running the mix board, how loud the voice is of the person speaking into the microphone. All of that is going to determine what actually comes out of the loop. So, and then yes, you have volume control in your device to adjust what you're receiving from the loop. But every one of those steps affects the level.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's why we get in trouble with these neck loops, because you go into a room which has a loop and you can hear real well, and then you put on a neck loop and you don't hear anything unless you hang it over your ear. It's because you're not getting enough signal out of the neck loop. There are too many variables to say that once you're done, you're done. And that's unfortunate, but that's the nature of the beast. Even if it's FM, even if it's speakers, and you're using a hearing aid, it's all the way. It's what we call gain structure. It's how you build it up every step of the way so that every step is right. You can get the step in the middle right, but if the step at the beginning and the step at the end is off, it's still off.
Thank you.
So my concluding comment was kind of along what you both said. And in my simple answer to non-technical people, I say that hearing loop or FM or infrared has to come in at the Goldilocks level, not too strong and not too weak, but it's got to be just right for having that audio going out. And then us with our telecoil, again, it's Goldilocks. It has to be at the right level, not too strong and not too weak. And then the two come together and everybody sings Kumbaya. That's Wynn's non-technical way of how it needs to happen. And as I listen to more and more systems, I can walk in and I'm feeling comfortable that I can give feedback. Like one retirement center I walked in, they had a hearing loop. I punched it and I was like, whoa, it was like so loud. So I knew it was not calibrated right and I could give them feedback for it. So it's all about Goldilocks and getting things to work. So with that, we are ready to wrap it up. Glad that everybody could make it. You know, this is just this week and come. Everybody is here. I love the conversations. I love the questions. I love the learning together with all of this. And so
I wasn't sure if Crystal had your hand briefly raised, Crystal.
oh, I didn't see my captions.
No, okay, maybe not.
Okay.
Sorry. You're just.
But I do with Crystal, one thing that we didn't get to that I would like to see us carry forward as a discussion. We've had some discussions around voc rehab. If anybody's had any experiences or talked to people that have had experiences at voc rehab and having looped spaces or hearing access spaces, there's some questions that have come up and we've got voc rehab folks on the call, and it's a topic area that I think we should look at in much the same way as we're kind of taking a look at DMV, the court system, those kinds of quasi, some things are required and what, you know, this communication, effective communication rights that you have. I think we should take a look at that.
That'd be interesting to look into. I've had plenty of experience with voc rehab, so yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. We'll tap into that. And just a verbal thank you for all of your work. The website just got transferred and I'll be copying, pasting. There's 75 audiology programs across the country, and I now can push the button and contact any one of them. And it's just awesome. So Harry's deep into the equipment. Crystal is deep into these universities. So it's just really good.
Just on that line, my audiologist has a new hire. He's a doctor of audiology out of Louisiana. Went to school in Louisiana. I forget why he ended up in Lincoln, wife, job, whatever. But I pushed him also about telecoil hearing, and he shared, well, you know, they really don't tell us, they don't teach us about telecoils. And I know our program here at University of Nebraska Lincoln, the Barclay Center, they have at least one room that has a loop installed in it. And Cheryl Butler's gone and talked to them several times. So I don't know what they do for educating their students either. And I need to poke at my nephew on my wife's side of the family. He just is in his training period for being an audiologist or whatever, his 1 year time frame. So I need to push back at it. I sent him some information a while back, never heard back, but I need to poke at him again. So we need a list of audiologists that actually promote telecoils and hearing loops and don't give you this BS crap, old technology on all the other junk they throw at you. So
it's a perfect way to end. So the declaration that we wrote is about ADA access ready instruments. And so our goal is to make a list of audiologists that will do that, where they initiate, because all of them will say, oh yeah, I'll do it if we are asked. But the problem is people don't know to ask. So we're figuring out that it's a really sensitive topic and we're trying to figure out how to make that list. So that's on it. So we have the list. So we're hitting this every way we can. We have the list. everybody keep poking. I'm going to do the universities. Another fourth way is that Juliet, for 10, 12, 15 years, she will go or speak remotely to any audiology school about the telecoils. And so that's there. We've written articles, that's there. And then the last thing, so I'm listing, we have 7 things here. The last one is that Juliet and I wrote an article about this, and it's coming out Thursday. And we're going to be on the cover of Canadian Audiologists. And then we can push that. I know we are just so happy with the editor. Then we can push that article out anywhere we want to across the country, across Canada, and over in the UK.
I hope I see that
And
soon.
one other strategy, Win, I don't think you mentioned it. Win is also developing a list of all of the current models of hearing aids, brands and models that have everything included, built-in telecoil, Bluetooth, and Auracast. So she's doing that analysis as well. And that may be a route to getting around this honor roll list that irritates audiologists, which is to say, here's the equipment you want. Go find a specialist that delivers that and make sure you ask for this model number.
Yeah. So ideas welcome, little incubator sites to say, this is what we've tried, and this is what's working. And then we do that across the country. It's like, we're up for it all, and we're going to just keep on chiseling away and hopefully be getting more access. So yeah, it's good stuff, and really appreciate all of you in the different things that you're doing and saying, and just keep on trying the systems and poking and just communicating, and we're just going to do it one step at a time. So happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah.
Appreciate you
Thank you.
coming, and see you on email. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
And thank you, Rose. Bye.